the type, like, so we wanted to get a tattoo that kind of encapsulated how different we are from each other, but yet we're the same. So at the time, I really liked mythical. I mean, I still do, but when I was younger, like I really liked dragons. So I got a what do we? It's like a dragon that's like protecting a little angel, and it signifies the way the dragon is shaped. It's like wrapped around the like it's kind of like encircling the angel,
Mm-hmm.
meaning like I'm the bigger brother. I'm protecting him,
Okay.
and he's the angel because I mean, not so much now, but when I was younger, I was kind of like quick-tempered. He was like he was the type to like calm me down. Like he was the one who could like just be like, "Hey, yo, this isn't as serious as it is. Just chill."
Right.
So the way the angel is posed, like he's just very calm and just like kind of had his chin on his hands, being very just super calm. So, and in Japanese kanji, where the characters flesh and blood, meaning that even though we're two different beings, I mean, two different like creatures, like our attitudes and our personalities are completely different. The only thing that keeps us binded together is flesh and blood because we're brothers.
That's fair. That's fair. I know my mom and
Yeah,
my sister, they got like matching constellations. It's not as deep as that, but
yeah,
no, I always think it's cool when like siblings do that shit or like family members do that kind of stuff because
yeah,
it is like a little like it's a forever bond like on your skin as much as it is like inside of you and your chemistry and stuff like that. You know what I mean? Like it's just
yeah,
there's a cool symbolism at least if that makes
yeah.
sense. Like let's see the one that I was wanting to get with my sister would have probably been something similar to that. But I
Hmm.
would probably be more similar to like the star sign stuff because that's what she's into. And
Yeah,
granted, I'm not as much into it as she is, but I don't mind getting like a little Taurus, bull symbol somewhere just because you know she wants to get hers too, and it's just something to do. But I'm not that
yeah.
close with my sister, at least. Like, are you particularly like close with your brother? Like,
Oh yeah. Like okay. I was, I mean, so our age difference is like 6 years apart. So like for the first 6 years of my life, I was like the only child, and I was used to being like spoiled only for me and etc. So when my brother was born, I kind of got really jealous because he was getting all the attention. So
right?
for I would say the first 4 years, like I was just really jealous of him. Like I would play with him, like I would just like I would do this and that, like I would, but like deep down, like I was kind of jealous because he got all the attention. He was the baby of the family. Until one day, like him and I got into like a fight, and being a kid, like you say shit that you don't really know what you're saying. But
Right. Yeah. No.
I said, I hope, like, I wish my brother was never born. And like the look that my dad gave me was just like, it could like, I could have died. If looks could kill, I would have died right on the spot. And he's just like, look, he pulled me aside. He's just like, look, one of these days you guys are gonna need each other, so you better learn to get along now. And it didn't, obviously, when you're a kid, that kind of stuff doesn't stick with you. I mean, it stuck with me, but the meaning didn't hit until we got much older.
What age
And
do you say that hit you? Like, honestly, like,
um, I would say right when my parents divorced, was when my brother and I got really close because my mom was the one that moved out, and my dad was kind of like the disciplinary kind of parental figure where I needed to be the more nurturing kind of figure in his life. So that's when that's when my kind of attitude changed about him. It was like, okay, I got to protect you. Like mom's not around. I got to do this and that and whatever. And we became really close. Like I'm not even joking you, to this day, I can count on two hands where like we've legit argued. Like we hardly ever fight. Like we're super close.
so? Again,
Um,
what age was that around the time that your parents divorced?
um, around I was 13 and so then he was 7.
Okay. So
Yeah.
it was actually still relatively early on in your guys' life that this lesson was
Yeah.
taught to you. I found that to be
Yeah.
intriguing because, I have the almost the exact opposite relationship with my sister. And I feel like those lessons have been taught to me as time's gone on, if that makes sense. I don't
Yeah.
know if she's kind of on that same pattern.
Mhm.
But like, I don't know. I've had a weird step with life. So morality is kind of the only reason I say that. Um, Now,
Mhm.
granted, she's had a different experience than I have. So I can't really like persecute her, and I don't at all. But I just find it intriguing. I like she said stuff like that to like our family, to my mom, to me. Like I never took it seriously, to be honest with you. At one point, I got used to it. Um,
Yeah.
but like it's interesting to see that kind of dynamic because I I I would get a tattoo with my sister, but I don't think she would actually ever want to, which is interesting. Um,
Yeah.
and I don't think she has the impression that she would need me in her life, as her sibling. Um, and like to say, I've reached out to her, this and that. Um, but that's just how it goes sometimes. To be honest with you, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So I always,
Yeah.
I always find it really interesting. I think that's a special bond that y'all guys share, man. And that's something you shouldn't let go. You know. It's at least good to see you preaching that message to at least everybody else, because like,
Mhm.
yeah, there's a lot of people I know, especially in this community we're in, that avidly avoid their family and don't want anything to do with them at all. And
Yeah.
granted, I get that, but it's nice to see people actually valuing their roots and like sticking with that. I always have been one for that, so no, it's really cool
Yeah.
to see that kind of stuff. Like, do you actually hang out with your brother though? Like, do you talk to him on a daily?
I mean, we live in the same apartment.
Oh yeah,
Um, so how that came about was so at 22, I moved out for the first time with some roommates. Like they were like at the time best friends. I'm still best friends with one of them now. And I was like a wild child because living at home, my dad's pretty conservative. He's like a really like at the time like he was. I mean, we're a Catholic family, so my dad was really reserved. He cares a lot about image. Like he doesn't want you to like embarrass him in public, etc. Things like that. So at the time growing up, I'm gay. So like I kind of found a different sense of style, like in terms of like the clothing that I wore and things like that. And he would always try to like tone me down. He'd be like, "Hey, can you not dress like that in public?" And at the time, like it was annoying because I didn't know what it was at the time, but looking back through adult eyes, he was suppressing who I was.
right.
He was just putting down his foot like, yo, if you're gonna live in my house, you gotta kind of abide by these rules. So kind of don't dress like this, don't do that.
Well,
And I just went along
how
with
were
it.
you dressing though? Like, so
Like
listeners can.
like I kind of like to wear like jewelry. Like I would wear rings. I would wear like fitted clothes that at the time were like considered feminine. Like because like back then, baggy clothes were like you were like the masculine guy. Whereas like if you wore tight fitting clothes, then it was more considered feminine and like they would perceive you as like gay, which my dad like again was really about like how people perceived us as a family. He wanted us to look normal and a functional proper family. So like he didn't like things that were outside of the normal in quotations, so to speak.
And okay,
So
so like, are you talking
mhm.
about normal in terms of like American Western societal ideology? Or are you talking about normal in terms of like global state? Like, what do you mean by the normal?
um like just dress like how do I put it? Like cuz I was really into like emo music, rock music. So like I kind of dressed a bit grungy and like emo clothes and shit like that. I'd wear like the eyeliner, black
And
nail polish and shit like that.
what year would this be for perspective?
This would have been like early 2000s,
Okay,
like
early
around
2000s. I could actually see this, and when I was growing up in the early 2000s, most people who we'd see in public that would like actively dress that way, like granted I didn't care cuz I'm just a
yeah,
kid, but like bro, my mom, her boyfriends, like people that like were just in the life at the time, like just constant, like it was comments this that and the other thing. And like, early 2000s kid, dude. I watched like Smosh and shit growing up. So like
yeah,
Anthony Padilla, like Ian Hecox, the Shane Dawson, the cat fucker guy. There's like a whole bunch of
yeah,
people that at the time were very relevant and honestly like fit my style as well.
yeah,
Which I find to be intriguing considering the fact that like you wouldn't catch me dead wearing anything that would have been considered, feminine at all.
right,
Now, granted, that's just who I am. I'm over here wearing military fatigues and stuff, but like that's just me. Um,
yeah,
I find it intriguing though because I do remember that like that weird little kind of like what would you say like boundary in the room or elephant in the room to
yeah,
like
hmm,
the like the weirdness of that image at the time, if that makes sense, or the
yeah,
uniqueness. You didn't see it very often, and and I can attest to that one for sure. So I'm just kind of
yeah.
validating what you're saying. You continue.
Hmm. So it was only until like when I moved out, I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, hey, so I'm no longer under your roof. I can do whatever I want. I can dress however I want. So I kind of, granted, like in my early 20s at the time, I completely rebelled in my own way. Like I wasn't like the bad kid, but in terms of like dressing how I wanted, that's when I really went like full out. So I bought whatever clothes I wanted, wore whatever jewelry I wanted, wore whatever makeup or whatever. Like I went like I went full emo basically,
All right. Full
and
scene kid, I guess.
full scene kid. Like My Chemical Romance was like the inspiration for like how I would dress, pretty much,
That's
and like how
fair.
I would do my yeah.
That's fair.
So when there would be like family functions, I would show up to these functions dressed up like that, and the look on my dad's face was just like he was embarrassed, and I'm like, hey, you said if I'm not living on your roof, then as long as I'm not living on your roof, then I can dress however I want. So like I'm just doing what I need to do.
Yeah.
I was just I think at the time like I was obviously pushing back and then some because of how suppressed my sexuality was when I was a kid.
Right.
Like I remember when my parents were still together, like I can't remember how old I was. I would say probably maybe like 8 or 9. Like I saw my mom crocheting and I'm like, hey, that looks fun. Can I try it? So she was like, oh, okay, like this, I'll teach you. And then my dad walks in, sees what's happening, and then pulls my mom aside. And then she comes back, she's like, hey, you know what? Let's do something else. Me not knowing that he told her, don't teach him this. This is what women do,
Yeah. I
you know?
mean, I feel like if I had a dad in the house, there would have been a lot of that kind of stuff too. Like
Yeah.
I've talked to my dad. I'm not completely like fatherless as one would say, but like it's interesting you take something to like a separated parent, right? And you tell them like, yo, like this is what they said about this thing, and you get some other outcome where it's like somebody doesn't like that one thing.
If you guys want to see more content like this, then go ahead and hit that subscribe button down below. If you liked it, leave a like, leave a comment or something if you want to see somebody that I haven't talked to yet. On top of all this, right now we're only releasing clips. So once we reach about 200 subscribers, that's kind of the goal, we'll start releasing full episodes. We appreciate everybody that's been here for right now. And don't worry, we'll get there eventually. I love each and every one of you guys. I hope you guys have a great fucking day. Peace.
Another point to this, like my mom when I was really young, um, kind of like shielded me from like like kind of my own music taste and stuff because I was like getting into playing guitar just naturally,
Yeah.
right? Like all naturally. And like for some reason I think it just reminded her of like a lot of my dad. And
Mm,
it was like a little easier to kind of shift gear me away towards other things that are just as interesting to me, but like not the same things. Um, but I think it's very interesting. The farther you push somebody away, the more they kind of gravitate to it. Like how I play guitar all
yeah.
the time now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and that's crazy. Again, I think that kind of stuff is extremely interesting. So like, are you and your dad close now? Do you kind of express yourself the same way as years have gone on?
It's funny you say that. So like even so it was only until 2021 where like I confronted him. I'm like, because okay, so to kind of go back just a bit before I go to that part,
Okay.
because I'm like the complete opposite of my brother. My brother is the exact carbon copy of my dad. Like they both like the same things. They both like to golf with each other. They both play sports together. They can talk about whatever. Like they are just like they're so cool with each other. And I kind of missed out on that, and I wish I had that relationship with him at the time until like during the pandemic. Like I was talking to like a therapist and kind of talking to her about like how my relationship is with my parents, and she's like, have you ever considered patching things up with them? And I said no, like, but I think I should try. So I went up to my dad, like I like first of all, like we don't have a bad relationship. He's there for me whenever I need stuff. Like he'd be like, hey, okay, if you need something, just let me know, and he'll be there for me. But we just didn't have that camaraderie that my brother and him had, and that kind
Yeah.
of made me feel like, why can't I have that? So in 2021, like I went over to his place and I'm like, I sat down with him and I said, do we not get along because I'm gay? He's just like, no, that's not it at all. He's like, we just don't have things in common, but that doesn't mean I don't love you any less. And I said, well, why did you treat me this way when I was a kid? He's like, because I was stupid. I didn't have the life experience that I have now because he to kind of give some background, he's a phone technician. Um, so what he would do, he would go into like either businesses or people's houses and like fix their phone lines or like their internet and shit like that. Like what and during like all throughout his years in that one company, he's like, I met so many people. I met like so many different people that it made me realize that gay people are just people.
Yeah.
And it didn't take it only took me to confront him about like our relationship to be like, okay, no, we're actually cool. I just didn't have the opportunity to tell you. So like from that point on, like we are so cool. Like now we can talk about whatever. I can express because like there's been some times where like I would kind of like not talk to him about certain things because it was like gay in nature, thinking that he
I
wouldn't
mean,
want to
I do
talk about
that.
it.
I do that same shit with my family.
Yeah,
I feel you. Yeah.
yeah. And he's like, Joe, just whatever it is you need to talk about, I'm not I'm not gonna push you away. Like talk about everything and everything you need to talk with me. Like I'm here for you. So like from that point on, like our relationship has been so tight.
It's kind of wild, man. I mean,
Yeah,
that's like wholesome, I guess. It's taken a while to get there, but at least
it did.
it's getting better, and that's important. Um,
Yeah,
I find that extremely interesting. I wish I had a better relationship with some people in my family. Like my sister is
yeah,
one of them, and I've outsourced a lot of that. And I feel like you probably did do that in your lifetime as well, to the best of your ability. Um,
yeah,
I like the only tattoo I have is with a friend I don't even talk to anymore. Like we were good friends, and honestly, at the time, it seemed like a great idea. Do I regret this at all? Absolutely not.
yeah,
You know, there's more than one meaning behind my tattoo. But quite frankly, I do find that stuff nice. Like me and my mom fixed our relationship as time has gone on. And it's to a point that like some of the rest of the family who's used to the problems that had been going on,
Hmm.
um, they kind of still think that they happen, but like it's been years and time's just flying by, and they're kind of stuck because my family's not that close, man. We don't like talk, we don't hang out, so it's always
Yeah.
funny to watch like somebody like try to bring something up and then everybody just kind of looks at them like, oh well, we're past this shit, which is so nice. I
Yeah.
mean, dude, it's so interesting though. I think that stuff's very interesting. Like, so when you're talking about like this affecting, say, like your family life, how did this affect your like general, like, I guess, everyday life? Was it as bad in your everyday life as it was in your family life?
Um, I would say yes, especially during like elementary and high school years,
So again, put
because like,
time frame. You got to give us a year for this so we know where we're
okay,
at.
so let's see. This was like so if it was like 99 when I was in grade 8. So I would say from the early to mid 90s or throughout the 90s was like my elementary school years, and then from 2000 to 2004 or 5 was like when is was during my high school years.
Okay.
Um, so I found that it affected my life because I learned from an early age that I wouldn't get acceptance from my, at least, okay, my mom accepted me for who I was. I think like she said she always knew I was gay. But in order to get acceptance from my dad, I had to suppress a certain side of me, which then conditioned me to suppress that side in order to gain acceptance from my peers at school. And that kind of messed me up because I felt like I was like looking back like I was a chameleon. I said and did and acted a certain way to be accepted with a certain clique or with a certain person. And I learned that it took me a while to learn that that is not a long-term solution to making connections with people,
Yeah,
because
no.
your authentic self will eventually come out, and then it's at that point where those connections you made will be like, was this even genuine? Like they may not even say that in those exact words, but they'll kind of pull away, and then they'll hang out with other friends and then kind of like leave you to the dust, so to speak, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I've
So
had
that
that. I feel like that's
mhm,
something that a lot of people that are in our age gap tend to not really think about. Like, there's
yeah,
the idea of like, oh, it's commonly accepted in your guys' generation. That's very true. It's more accepted than it was back in when you were in school and getting out of high
yeah,
school and developing your young adult life. Whereas for me, I've had just as much friends I've lost over this as anybody. Like, I was at the bar the other day and somebody had told me that they had learned about this from somebody close to me, about like the stuff I do, my sexuality. I don't hide it. I just don't tell
yeah,
people. Um, and it's like the reason I don't tell people is because, I've told a few friends and exactly what you said, where it's like you start to open up and they fizzle the fuck out of your life. Like almost as
yeah,
soon as it seems like you open up about this thing. And like, granted, as somebody who this is, I can understand maybe why that type of conversation might make you uncomfortable. Sure. Um, but as somebody who did grow up in this generation, I've always said like, well, and it's just people problems. So if you're having issues talking to your boyfriend or to your girlfriend, it doesn't matter. It's two people in a relationship having communication issues. You know
yeah,
what I mean? So like it's easy for somebody who isn't really like familiar with that kind of side of society to be scared of that quote unquote different dynamic that will come from
Yeah.
that. At least in my brain, that's how I've justified that behavior. Um, Now, granted, you can keep going. I find it interesting because I feel like there are people like who would assume that this doesn't happen anymore when it really does in its own different way. You know what I mean? And it comes down
Yeah.
to social, like very small social interactions, usually like with friend groups, like one or two people get weirded out by you, and then all of a
Hmm.
sudden you're like pushed out of this friend group, and then there it is.
Yeah.
Um, Now, I have a question. Do you think that assuming that that was the problem um, is a healthy way to think?
Um, I mean, could you elaborate on that? Like, what do you mean?
Like, assuming that people would be scared to like engage with you about this stuff just
Okay.
because it's not their preference. Do you think assuming that somebody is scared is an issue in itself? Because I've
Um,
lost friends from just doing things wrong and not
okay.
realizing it, but I thought it was that, like sometimes people aren't thinking the things that you might think they are.
Yeah.
Um, the way that like a lot of people are conditioned is like, of course, by hearing you talk about this,
Yeah.
um, you're kind of conditioned to think that most people are uncomfortable with it. It's like literally in your family life from,
Yeah.
being raised. So it's interesting because I wonder like just how many of those people actually were like running away from interacting with that or just kind of like avoiding social interaction at all. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Rather than I don't know, it is a different perspective, but I've always been open to like that kind of perspective anyways. So it's a little bit
Yeah.
different for at least how I view that. Now that could be the general generational difference kicking in on there. Um,
Definitely.
but like I've always wondered, have you ever thought that way? Like that maybe you might have assumed a little too much about why they're getting on you.
Um, I think it's more like I said, I was like conditioned to be a certain way to gain acceptance. So when I see
So were you
like
more like putting on an act to like get friends, and when you stopped putting the act on, those friends would kind of disappear? Is that kind of like more of an accurate representation of what that
yes.
would be? Okay. See, now that makes sense. And again, like I guess another perspective you could land on that is do you think that maybe it's because you changed up like so swiftly or quickly? Um Whereas like they kind of view you as putting on an act and that was disrespectful to them. Do you think that that could be a
I,
factor in maybe some of that?
I think it was more of the fact that because I had to force a mask to be accepted, once I got comfortable, sometimes I would forget to wear said mask, and then they'd be like, kind of weirded out, like, "Oh, who's this? Like, which version of this is this?" It wasn't such a drastic change. I'm kind of like, or I'm exaggerating it, but there was a definite change where I could tell that they switched up, where they would kind of like not want to hang out as much, or they're like, "Oh, I'm hanging out with so and so today. We'll hang out tomorrow," and then tomorrow would never happen, and they would just
Right.
kind of just naturally drift away. And that happened so many times that like it became normal to me. I was like, oh, I guess I this cycle of friendship is over because they found out who the real me is, and it really messed me up a lot as a kid to
So
the point where like I kind of stayed secluded because
as an adult, do you see a difference in people's behavioral pattern, especially with friendships?
yes, because now that I'm not hiding myself, it's easy for me to see when people are doing it, they may not be doing it the same way that I did, but I can tell when someone's being like disingenuous, so to
Yeah,
speak.
they're being fake.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, like, another question: do you think that social media has exacerbated this issue in its own way, or do you think, like, because I have very similar feelings about growing up and friends, honestly.
Mm,
Now I don't really think that that's my sexuality. Um, the more and more I get older, the more I look back and I think personally that we just grew apart anyways. Um, and like, yeah, I just had hard terms accepting losing people for a long time.
yeah.
And I would always
Mm,
blame that on myself. Like, I would always be, oh, yeah, I must be a shitty friend or this or that, blah, blah, blah. And I'd beat myself up
yes.
on this kind of stuff. And then I would always tell myself, oh, I kind of deserve it. You know what I mean? Um, but like, at the end of the day, it's like, as an adult now, and growing up in high school where like Snapchat and stuff was a thing, right? You know, people would tell me like, "Oh no, I'm gonna go do this," and then like an hour later, I see on their story like three mutual friends at a gathering at somebody's house. They're all drinking and smoking and having a fucking wonderful time, and
Yeah.
I asked somebody to chill, who's there, and they said no, they're gonna go do this thing, and then they ended up doing that instead. Not put a single thought into somebody who is friends with everybody else in the environment, right?
Yeah.
But that's when it's like, like I think that that's kind of natural in terms of like human and like friendship development. Like it takes time um for people to either actually genuinely like develop relationships with each other and like a dependency on each other. It also takes time for some people to genuinely learn each other to a point that they grow apart. Um, like, you know what I'm saying? Like I see like I see the sexuality side of it for sure.
Mm.
Do you think that a majority of your relationships ended because of those kind of vibes, or do you think that there's like a mix of it all, and for a while it was easy for you to put that scapegoat in as like your like quick acceptance of, oh yeah, it's just how it is. You know what I mean? Like,
Um, like you said, it kind of made me think like there's something wrong with me. Like, why
right.
can't I hold down these friendships for X amount of time? Which then, like, in order to stop feeling that pain, I just accept, like, okay, this is just how I always knew I was different. Like, I find that in social settings, I'm not the extroverted type. Like I can talk to people. Like I'm not like but it takes a lot for me to open up to someone because I was so guarded. Um yeah, that's what I want to get to the point I was trying to make, that losing so many people that I cared about made me so guarded that it would that from I would say after high school and through college, like it made me kind of closed off to some people. Um I would be a very surface level friend where we would just talk about school stuff. Like I would see other classmates like in high school or in college going out to lunch with each other, doing this, that, and whatever. But no one would ask me to hang out with them. I wouldn't ask people to hang out with them. Um, because like I was just used to being like in quotations like a loner, you know.
All right.
Pulling out the coupe at the lot, told him fuck 12, fuck SWAT, busting all the bells out the box. I just hit a lick with the